Good morning everyone, welcome back to Strength and Conditioning for Karate. I'm Trevor and today we're going to go into the conditioning side of strength and conditioning. The first area I want to actually discuss is give you an understanding of the basic concepts of when we develop our conditioning. So conditioning, or as it's generally referred to as fitness, our conditioning should represent the activity we are doing in our performance. What I mean by that is our movement parameters, the muscle groups that we use, the type of muscle contraction, whether it's be muscular endurance, muscular or explosive power, the duration and the intensity, and they will help define what energy system we're using to fuel. Now, the energy system is the way our body produces the fuel. Now, a fuel that the human body uses is adenosine triphosphate. Most people would use it by its acronym of ATP. Now, to produce ATP, the body has two main energy systems that it uses. We have our anaerobic energy systems and our aerobic energy systems. Anaerobic refers to without oxygen, aerobic means with oxygen. So when we have a look at the anaerobic energy systems, we can break that down further into two systems. First one is our ATP-PC system, or metabolic pathway, production of ATP through the metabolic pathway at the cellular level. We can then also look at the second anaerobic energy system, commonly referred to as the lactate energy system, or the glycolytic pathway. And that breaks down glycogen, which is the main fuel source that the body uses, or the main source to generate our ATP, is glucose, and it is stored in the muscle as glycogen. Now, both of these produce ATP fairly quickly, but in limited supplies. Now, our aerobic energy system with oxygen, or is referred to as oxidative phosphorylation pathway, it produces a lot of ATP, but it takes some time before it actually fully engages. So when we look at it, generally it's referred to that the ATP-PC system will produce 2 molecules of ATP for each cycle. Our glycogen produces 6 molecules, whereas the oxidative phosphorylation pathway will produce 32 molecules. Some books you'll see it's 38. That's because it's referring to the glycogen production as well, those 6 molecules there. So as you can see, the ATP produces a lot more, the oxidative phosphorylation, or the aerobic energy system, produces a lot more ATP, but it takes longer to produce that amount of ATP. So what activities do each of the energy systems cater for? Now, with the Olympics just passing, we can have a look at a few Olympic events and we can identify their fuel sources. Now, if we were to look at your 100-meter sprint, a long jump, pommel horse in gymnastics, if you're into cycling and they do that 200-meter sprint in cycling, they're all considered that it's anaerobic energy system using the ATP-PC system, metabolic pathway. It's an explosive event and it depletes us of all our ATP. And that's why you'll do a 100-meter sprint, and before you can consider doing another one at maximal effort, it can take 3 to 5 minutes to restore our ATP. Now, if we go on to our next anaerobic and look at the lactate energy system, that lasts generally from about 10 seconds to about a minute. And so when you look at that in the Olympics, you look at the 400-meter race. Probably one of the hardest events at the Olympics for the human body to tolerate. Now, that anaerobic energy system, the intensity is not as high as when we do ATP-PC. Slightly lower, still extremely high, still extremely tough. But we can extend our effort for slightly longer because we're not going at 100%. The example is in the 100-metre sprint, they may run that in around 9.8 seconds, whereas in the 400-metre race, they're running that in probably the low 40s, I think around 43, 44 seconds. So as you can see that is about 1 to 2 seconds per 100 metres slower. Now, to put that to you in the perspective, that's around 15 to 20 metres slower than a 100-metre sprinter. So they're still incredibly fast. Don't understand that. The intensity is still high, but not as high as a 100-metre. Then we go into our aerobic energy system, and those events usually last quite a while. So usually from about 2 to 3 minutes and beyond. So I guess a track event is at 5,000 metres, the marathon, if you have a look at cycling, the road race, those sorts of events, long lasting, the 1,500 metres event in the pool. So they take a long time to work. Now, the ATP that is produced is 5 times more aerobically than in the lactate energy system, but it takes a couple of minutes for that to first engage. So then we need to have a look at that, and to explain that, have you ever gone for a road run? You know, I'm going to go for a 5K road run or a 30-minute road run, and you start your run, and you walk out, you probably do 1 or 2 stretches, and then you start running, and you get maybe 300-400 meters down the road, a couple of minutes down the road, and you're already breathing really heavy. And you're sitting going, how am I going to last for 5 kilometers or 30 minutes when I've only gone for a couple of minutes and I'm already struggling? And then you run a bit further along and a bit further, and then all of a sudden you feel like you get your second wind. Up until that point, we've been relying on our anaerobic energy systems. Anaerobic energy systems, high level of metabolic waste products, carbon dioxide, hydrogen ion, lactic acid, that sort of thing. And you're breathing heavy because the body's trying to clear it of those waste products and replace it with the oxygen. Once the aerobic energy system engages and you get that second wind, then you're able to run more comfortably because you're producing enough ATP to meet the demand, and your body can clear the metabolic waste products a lot easier. So we're not having to puff faster and faster to get rid of those waste products, and we maintain that level. So that's a simple explanation of the energy systems. So now we look at karate based and think, okay, what sort of training should we do for each of these? Now, every karate class you ever participate in the dojo, irrespective of kumite, Kion, kata, you will find the vast majority of times your classes are aerobic based. Now, if you look at how often we should do aerobic based activity, the hard cold truth is you should do it every day, 7 days. I'd like to think that if you are doing karate as your sport, that at least 3 times a week you are doing some form of aerobic training, doing karate activities. Now you can attend 2 classes in the dojo and do 1 training session at home, whether it be doing your kata at home or working on Kion or stances, anything like that. As long as you do at least 20 minutes, that should help. Now your aerobic energy system, you still have to work at a certain level. Now, if you can talk as easily as I'm talking now, you are not working hard enough to actually enhance your aerobic fitness. You might develop heart health, but not aerobic fitness. Now, then we look at that. So what other activities can you do? If you're doing 3 karate sessions, go for a brisk walk, walk your dog, ride a push bike, go for a swim, doing at least 20-minute sessions. When you're looking at the time frame, if you're only doing 20 minutes, you want to work it a little bit harder if you're doing an hour bushwalk. If you're going for a walk and it's flat, walk it a bit fast. However, if you have the odd hills undulating, walking up and down hills will help you stress it. So that's how we can look at the aerobic system. And just doing daily activities, like I said, relatively high intensity for at least 20 minutes. Now, when I say high intensity, we can use heart rate monitors, but if you don't have one of those, use the talk test. Again, if you can walk your dog and you can talk as fast as I am now, the intensity is not high enough. You want to be able to talk, have a conversation, but maybe 5 or 6 word sentences only. Now, if you're struggling to even say 1 or 2 words, then the intensity is now anaerobic. That's good for our fitness, but if you're focusing on aerobic conditioning, it's taking us into anaerobic. Now, our anaerobic, our ATP-PC, high intense burst activities, yes, I guess Your first attack in Kumite will be ATP-PC, but after that, repeat efforts of high intensity, we're looking at our glycolytic or our lactate energy system. Now, lactate energy system means we have to be doing high intensity activity. That is above 85% of your heart rate max. To put that into context is if you can have a conversation, even when you can have converse in 5 or 6 word sentences, your intensity is not high enough. Now, you can't base it on how much you're sweating. It's based on your heart rate. Fast movements. Most kata, anaerobic in nature. They will have various times, hard fast, such as in Cypher. If you look at kata empi, highly explosive. Fast actions, repeating that, changing directions, going from one chapter to the next chapter. Very much anaerobic. So we need to work on our anaerobic high intensity activities. Now, because you're doing high intensity activities, you're not going to be able to go for a long period of time. So with that, we need to go high intensity, short based. A lot of that is earmarked through high intensity interval training, of which the most common known is Tabata. Although a little disclaimer on Tabata, although everyone uses Tabata and goes, oh, it's 20 seconds on, 10 seconds off for 4 minutes or 8 cycles. True Tabata comes from a couple of publications in 1996 and 1997 out of Japan. The lead author's surname was Tabata. And to do a true Tabata, you go for 20 seconds, you are training at 170% of your VO2 max, your aerobic capacity. Now, your aerobic capacity is there, but your anaerobic capacity is up there. So that's how high you are trying. You then do 10 seconds of light activity at 70% of your VO2 max. And you do that for 4 minutes. Now, if you do it at that intensity, after your 4 minutes, you're going to have a little sit down and a little rest. And we'll do a few examples of that in upcoming videos. But high intensity interval training is probably the best way to enhance your anaerobic capacity. Now, sometimes when we do our line drills and our Kion, we'll do slow, medium, and then we do hard and fast. And so you think, well, hard and fast is anaerobic, but it's not going to enhance our anaerobic capacity because it's relatively short in duration. Then we have a pause and a break, and then we'll start and do a new basic and a new skill, and there might be a little bit slow before we go again. So we just get into that anaerobic, which is above that 85% marks, and then we drop down again. So we need to get it up to that level and sustain it. So high intensity interval trainings. Now, things like Tabata are ideal because it's only 4 minutes work, and that will help with your aerobic or your anaerobic conditioning. So that's how we can do and train our energy systems and what we need to focus on. So when we're doing our basics, our line drills and our general training in classes, that is aerobic. Now we want to do some form of aerobic activity every day of the week. When we get to our anaerobic energy system, the intensity is a lot higher. Near maximal efforts, repeat efforts, and you probably want to do it for a few minutes at least. Tabata for 4 minutes, or you could do it even for 2 minutes. And the movement we want to do replicates the movements that we do in karate. And it comes down to specificity of fitness. You train a certain way, you will get fit training the way you train. So if you have to perform high intensity, at some point to enhance that fitness, you have to train high intensity. And over the next couple of weeks, we'll go through and I'll put up a couple of examples of that sort of stuff. Until then, if you haven't yet subscribed, hit the subscribe button, turn on the buttons and notifications so next time I upload a video, you'll get a notification that a new video is upgraded. Until then, don't forget, if you're working on your skill and technique, hit the online dojo portal on the GKR website. Don't forget our Zoom classes. There's a couple of classes every night. And hopefully lockdown may be ending sometime very soon.